We've all been stuck waiting on the HMRC phone line, spending hours on hold, trying to give them money that you have earned, losing time that you'll never get back. It's enough to drive you mad. So I'm announcing today that under a Reform government, if you spend more than half an hour waiting for HMRC to answer your call, you will get a £30 credit off your tax bill. If HMRC delay, well, they can repay. And to make sure that the staff actually hit their targets, we'll tie the pay of senior HMRC officials to their customer service performance. It took a Frenchman to give Britain its perfect self-description back in the 18th century. Facing defeat once again at the hands of the Royal Navy, a petulant revolutionary said, "Let Pitt then boast of his victory to his nation of shopkeepers." Naturally, we took that as the greatest compliment he had to offer. Britain was a nation of shopkeepers and of small workshops, and in many ways it still is. Small businesses are at the heart of our towns and of our economy. They employ 17 million people right across the country. When they prosper, we all prosper. And when they're struggling, it's a sign that something is going very badly wrong. Thanks to decades of neglect, many small businesses are on their knees right now. Surveys show that less than a fifth of Britain's small businesses are expecting to grow over the next 12 months, and almost a third are expecting to shrink or close altogether. And why is this? Well, the Tories pushed net zero without thinking about its effect on energy prices. They froze the VAT registration thresholds while inflation was running wild. They forced small businesses to shell out on accountants and waste their time with admin. They hiked corporation tax just after the pandemic that had devastated businesses and their reserves. Kemi Badenoch bragged about her plans to slash retained EU law, but then bottled it and dropped the sunset clause and kept the vast majority on the books. Mel Stride oversaw the loan charge, which battered small businesses and sole traders. Capital markets like AIM have withered away. Investors who might have financed businesses have been chased out of the country to cover for Rishi Sunak's own personal tax affairs. And the tax code, it grew by a quarter to almost 23,000 pages. After being booted out of office, the Tories passed the mantle to the Labour Party. Labour's assault on small businesses, the jobs tax, the inheritance tax, the burden of Angela Rayner's employment regulation is only making things much, much worse. And just this week, Andy Burnham has prepared the already scorched earth for more tax rises in the budget this autumn. This government doesn't know how businesses are built. They've not built them themselves, and frankly, I don't believe they even care for those who do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our message to small businesses is simple. Hold on, because help is on its way. Today, I'm setting out how a Reform UK government, led by Nigel Farage, will fix the mess left by the old parties with a new contract for small business that starts by helping you to raise money, to get going, to hire your first employees. Whether you grow your business into a scale-up or choose the freedom of continuing to work on your own, we will be there for you every step of the way. So we will unlock access to finance and mentoring to those just starting out by changing the rules to allow parents and grandparents to make modest, tax-favoured investments in family firms through seed investment schemes. Because starting a business shouldn't be dependent on owning a home or having very well-connected friends. And we will reform the rules for non-executive directors so experienced people can mentor small businesses without risking a huge bill if it goes wrong. Where Labour are putting up regulatory barriers, Reform is going to tear them down. A Reform government will repeal and replace the silly GDPR rules that suffocate small businesses, and in particular, the tech sector. One study found that the number of new apps launched had fallen by half, partly as a result of this overburdensome regulation. Of course, Reform is going to maintain important protections for personal privacy, but we will cut out the unnecessary and the burdensome red tape that has been ladled on in recent years. Our new legislation will be modelled on New Zealand's Privacy Act, which the EU still recognises, so trade continues unaffected, but which has substantially cut compliance costs for ordinary businesses and startups. Because a Reform government will get out of the way and let small companies build again, whether it's software or houses, you name it. We'll scrap the electric vehicle mandates for cars and for vans, letting businesses and white van men choose the vehicles they want to drive, that they think are right for them and their businesses. We'll make sure that the cost of fuel and energy isn't insurmountable, because we know it's such an important element of paying the day-to-day bills in a company. And we'll do that by ending the net zero policies that are driving up bills right now. We'll cancel the 5p rise in fuel duty that's coming down the line. And isn't John Healey conspicuously silent about that one? When you want to hire staff, we'll be there to help you. That's why we're the only party that has said unambiguously that we will abolish Rachel Reeves's job tax on British workers, and we'll fund that with that tax cut with a levy on migrant labour. So businesses can nurture homegrown talent without being undercut by foreign workers. Reform will never tire of putting British people first, and we will ensure that we back businesses that do the same every day of the week. Reform will provide apprenticeship wage credits and a retention bonus for the small businesses who take a chance on young British people, on people like my dad, whose apprenticeship taught him the skills he needed eventually to set up his own company and get going in life. The credit would save employers £4,700 every year. And the retention bonus, that will give workers an incentive to stay with the business that's trained them up, with a £2,000 bonus that's paid 2 years after the training if they remain with their employer who's invested in them. And we'll unwind Labour's anti-jobs legislation, ending the hiring freeze that came with Angela Rayner's so-called Employment Rights Act. When it comes to filing your taxes, we'll make it fairer and easier. We'll introduce a hard work bonus, scrapping income tax on overtime, so employees are properly rewarded when they go above and beyond. Now, this might not mean very much for people in the City of London, but let me tell you, this could be worth £700 a year to a distribution factory worker in Nottinghamshire. We'll raise the VAT threshold from 90,000 to 150,000, saving small companies hours of headaches and hundreds of pounds each year managing all the admin that goes with it, and crucially, removing the incentive to stay just below the registration threshold. We back ambitious people. That means 320,000 companies are going to be better off under Reform overnight. We'll reverse Labour's inheritance tax, smash and grab on family farms and small businesses with property, enabling you to hand your business on to your children and your grandchildren, and end all those sleepless nights worrying about how it's going to play out. And today, I'm announcing a new approach for HMRC, the taxman. We've all been stuck waiting on the HMRC phone line, spending hours on hold, trying to give them money that you have earned, losing time that you'll never get back. It's enough to drive you mad. Small businesses spend 242 million hours and £25 billion doing their taxes every year. The taxman, meanwhile, he fails to answer millions of calls. It takes more than a month to reply to letters, and 2 years can pass to process a simple refund. There's one small business owner in Manchester who was handed a £2.85 billion tax bill, almost £3 billion. HMRC even sent collection agents to his house when they said he wasn't paying up. Of course, it turned out that they were wrong, and the real bill was 2,500 quid. Did he get an apology? I bet he's still waiting for it. Last year, MPs were accusing HMRC of deliberately degrading its own services to force people onto the website. It's a disgrace. Frankly, it is offensive to working people, and I have had enough. So we will give HMRC a big incentive to actually provide proper customer service. So I'm announcing today that under a Reform government, if you spend more than half an hour waiting for HMRC to answer your call, you will get a £30 credit off your tax bill. If HMRC delay, well, they can repay. And to make sure that the staff actually hit their targets, we'll tie the pay of senior HMRC officials to their customer service performance. It's just fair. The taxman has been treating people trying to do their best to understand an unbelievably complicated tax system appallingly. As Chancellor, I'm going to do things differently to my predecessors. HMRC will send to me daily figures on waiting times until they fix it. Now, I'm a patient man, but if they test my patience, as they are testing the patience of millions of people across our country right now, they'll be fired. And there'll be no golden parachutes either. They will be waiting on hold for that for a very long time. Things are going to change under Reform. The Treasury is going to do things differently. We believe that while small businesses have done their part for Britain, they have been let down by out-of-touch politicians, people who've never had to go over the accounts, people who've never sat up late worried about where the money's going to come from, never sat watching a budget, frankly, waiting to see what the latest Chancellor is going to do. Are they going to put you out of business? Reform is different. Look at our team: Nigel, Richard, Zia, myself. People who have started companies, who have grown companies, who've managed companies, who know what it takes and how difficult it can be. And for me, this mission is personal. My dad, Bill, left school in Manchester aged 16 to be an apprentice. He worked for Ford in Dagenham and a foundry in the Black Country. And then he started his own small business around our kitchen table, fitting fireplaces. A story the same as hundreds of thousands across the country. And I remember too that it was a long time before that business was successful. Even as a child, you know when things are going well and you know when things are going badly. You know when they're waiting for the next sale, when your parents are having quiet conversations late at night about money that they think you can't hear. It was a long road for him to be successful. But it did work out. And until last year, age 85, he was still at the factory 5 days a week, 8 a.m., shirt and tie on, doing his job. And if he didn't have that work ethic, he wouldn't have built that business. He instilled that work ethic in me. It's something that I've brought to the businesses that I've run and to politics as well. And let me be very clear. This is what Reform believe. The state doesn't create wealth. It doesn't make good jobs. It doesn't make good businesses. It can break them. But what it can do, with the right leadership and determination, is create a competitive environment in which entrepreneurs can succeed, can prosper, can achieve their dreams. That is why we are setting out this contract today. Together, it is the most comprehensive plan for small business any government has launched in decades. A commitment to getting the government out of the way of the people who want to be their own boss, to hire a new worker, to start a family firm. A commitment to funding a new generation of technical and construction skills. A commitment to make sure that hard work pays, that enterprise always has its reward. In return, we ask three things. Firstly, we ask that small businesses keep being some of the best employers that Britain has to offer, treating workers fairly and well. Secondly, we ask that they keep taking risks and keep betting on Britain. And thirdly, we ask that they keep doing their part to make Britain grow again, to get this country off its knees, to get this country back to being a great country once again. The simple truth is that small businesses have been doing all these things and more. It's the government that's failed to uphold its side of the bargain. The Reform government will fix this. So to every entrepreneur in Britain today, and everybody who's sat at home thinking about doing it, dreaming about what you too could build, if Andy Burnham and John Healey won't take our contract and implement it now, then hold on. Keep the faith. Keep going. Because change is on its way. A Reform government is going to fix this. Britain is broken, but it can be fixed. And Reform have a plan to fix small businesses and help you to achieve your dreams. Thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some questions now from the media, and I'll start with Alex Forsyth from the BBC. Alex.
Hi, Mr. Jenrick. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Increasing VAT thresholds, cancelling the 5p rise in fuel duty, abolishing national insurance for employers, scrapping income tax on overtime. That is a pretty pricey list. Presumably you can tell us exactly how much that's going to cost and exactly how you're going to pay for it. And secondly, you would have seen the news today about the energy price cap increasing with predictions that it could increase further. Would Reform UK support something like a social tariff for the most vulnerable households?
Well, on the first point, last week I set out the most comprehensive and ambitious plan to bring down our welfare bill, the ballooning benefits bill, £51 billion of savings. It's by making tough decisions like that we're able to do things as we've done today, to help working people and pensioners who've worked their whole lives and deserve dignity and security in retirement. You can always be confident that a Reform government will be careful with your money. And I've always said, from the very first speech I made as Reform Shadow Chancellor, that I will not make any commitment to the British people that I am not certain that I can deliver. We have cycled through 9 chancellors in 10 years. The office of Chancellor of the Exchequer has been devalued because people have made promises, they've lied to the British public, they've not kept them. Never again. So have confidence that we have done our sums, we're going to make the savings that are necessary, and we're going to use that money to protect British people, to ensure that British workers and small business owners get the support that they actually need. With respect to the increase in energy bills, look, this is going to be a very difficult period ahead. Households are being battered by energy price increases. Energy prices will have risen by 17% since April alone. My message to John Healey and Andy Burnham is very simple. Drop your net zero dogma. Do what Reform have proposed. Get rid of the green taxes and levies that have been ladled onto people's energy bills by stealth. If you do that, if you take our plan that Richard Tice and I have set out for months now, you will save the average household £200 off their energy bill. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why anyone would want to put net zero ideology above the interests of British people this winter, who are going to find life very, very tough. I've got Keith Bayes now from GB News.
Keith Bayes, GB News. Mr. Jenrick, this is an ambitious shopping list. Tax cuts, deregulation, incentives to work. But how much will this package of measures actually cost? Can you give me an exact figure? What exactly replaces GDPR? You say a light touch. What does that look like? And what's your evidence this will create growth rather than simply leave the Treasury with a big bill? Thank you.
Look, I believe passionately that small businesses are the backbone of this country. If we do not support entrepreneurs to set up new businesses, to grow those businesses, to become the big businesses of the future, world-leading businesses in this country, then there's no future, frankly, for our economy. And I'm afraid that is the path that we're going down right now. Successive chancellors have battered businesses with tax rises, with increases in regulation, careless, cack-handed. And business people have had enough. Reform is going to fix that. And what I've set out today, if implemented by Andy Burnham, and look, I would welcome it if he did. Rachel Reeves was the copy and paste chancellor, so let John Healey take forward these proposals. But if they won't, we will. Mark my words, we will. And we'll do so rapidly under a Reform government. This will give the shot in the arm that our entrepreneurs and small businesses desperately need. With respect to our changes to GDPR, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are other countries around the world that have done this. Look at New Zealand. They have created a system which is sufficiently light touch that it does not place all these burdens upon small businesses. You don't have to be constantly clicking accept or reject every time you go onto a website and they ask you about the cookies, but which still has EU adequacy so that you can trade freely and share data with businesses in the European Union. For some reason, what did our country do? We chose to gold plate the crazy Brussels regulations, and that has been an immense cost to British businesses. Well, enough is enough. Reform is going to do things differently. That's going to be gone. And we're going to make sure that we protect people's privacy, but we also help businesses to get on, employ people, create goods and services, create wealth. Nothing wrong with being successful. That's what a Reform government is going to do. I've got Faye Brown now from Sky News.
Hi. It seems like you don't really want to be drawn on how much all of this is going to
No,
cost.
I'm very happy to say that.
Have you
Faye.
got a figure as to how much all will cost, and if not, when might we see the fully costed proposals? And if I could just ask about the changes to the seed investment fund. Reform UK pitches itself as anti-establishment, as the party for working people. But do you accept that most working people don't have £250,000 to invest in their children's business or their grandchildren's business? And how do you know this won't just become a vehicle for tax planning for wealthy families?
Look, the situation today is that it is very, very tough to raise money. If you're looking to set up a business, it's nigh on impossible to get loans out of the banks, and they're sat on increasing reserves, fat profits, and yet SME lending is still lower than it was before the financial crisis. And the days when a young person could just draw down on equity in their home to invest in their business have also long gone, because most people in their 20s and 30s don't own a home, or if they do, they're scraping by. They don't have equity in it. So what we're proposing today is a small measure whereby if you could ask a family member to lend you a bit of money, there would be some tax incentives for you to do so. Because the kind of people that we represent, they don't know some local millionaire who's going to invest in their business. They don't have those connections. But it is possible, in some cases, that a mum or a dad, a grandparent, maybe has some money that they got through inheritance or a redundancy package or some savings that they want to invest to support their child or their grandchild to get on and build a business. Everything that we've set out today has been through the eyes of working people. It's not about the rich. Reform is for working people. We're not for Benefit Street. We're not for Belgravia. We're for the 80% of people in the middle. With respect to how much each of our policies cost, there's a whole series of them that we've set out today. We've costed each and every one of them. They're set out in the document that we're publishing alongside this. And it's been very important to me, as Reform's Shadow Chancellor, that we don't make wild promises. You've seen that in the past. Rachel Reeves said, no tax increases. She increased taxes by £66 billion. She was booted out as a result. Everything that we've said, we've set out very clearly where we're going to get the money from. And it's set out in the document that accompanies today's announcement. Well, Claire Ellicott from the Daily Mail.
Thank you. A new poll shows that support for reform is slipping to its lowest level in 18 months and that Restore are gaining supporters. Why do you think this is and how do you plan to stop this?
Claire, people have been saying that reform had peaked, that it was going nowhere for a very long time. And they've always been wrong. And I suspect they'll be wrong once again. People, in my experience, are crying out for change right now in this country. They're not going to get that from Andy Burnham. That's more of the same. Their taxes are going to go up in the budget. They're not going to get it from Kemi Badenoch and the Conservatives. Trust me, they're a busted flush. Reform is this country's best hope. It's its last hope. And that's why we are working so hard with announcements like we are today to demonstrate that we are the change that this country really needs. I've got Genevieve now from The Telegraph. Genevieve.
Hi, thanks. So just first of all about your plans for a £30 tax credit if an individual is waiting for longer than half an hour on the phone to HMRC. Have you calculated how much this proposal will cost? And if HMRC doesn't get its act together, in your view, for several years, will this be an indefinite policy until they get their waiting times down? And if I may, it sounds like this new light touch approach to GDPR will apply to small businesses, but also big firms like big tech companies, for example. So do you want to make it easier for these big tech companies to collect and store data of users, personal information of users? Thank you.
Well, on GDPR, look, I think it is crazy that we've ended up in a situation with one of the most onerous regulatory environments of any country in the world. We don't have to do this. There are other countries like New Zealand which came with much more sensible systems. And so all we have to do is go and replicate what those countries are doing, and we will lift a massive burden off small businesses here in the UK. And it is tech businesses as well. As I said out in my remarks, there are a whole swathe of tech businesses, not the big boys, but small tech companies that are struggling now, are not able to create apps, are not able to grasp the opportunities that should be available because of our GDPR rules and the fact that they are so much more onerous than the requirements that they would face if they were over in the United States. And so it's for the benefit of all businesses, including the business of the future, like in tech, that we're making these changes. I've got Aaron Newbury now from The Express.
Good morning. Last night, the Conservatives had to retract a claim that the Prime Minister of Italy had argued for no deal between Reform and advised Kemi not to make one. Just ask, what's your relationship and Reform's relationship with Maloney like? Has it been harmed by this? And what's your reaction to the claim and the subsequent retraction from the Conservatives?
Well, look, it was obviously very, very embarrassing for Kemi Badenoch. My advice, if you go and visit a foreign leader, is don't make up a pack of lies about what they say. That's clearly going to hurt your relationship. I have meetings with people. Nigel has meetings with leaders around the world, and he keeps those conversations private. That's the way to do things. That's the way you conduct yourself. Look, as regards Kemi, look, we could tell she was making it up. That's what she's like. She lives in a fantasy of her own making. She made up that she got a degree offer for an American university for her CV. She claims that she's going to be the next Prime Minister. There's a lot of fantasies going on at the moment in Kemi's life. But I'll leave it there. I've got Tom Scottson now from The Sun.
Thank you. Do you blame small businesses that turn to cash in hand in this economy? And have you ever paid for a job in cash in hand?
I'm sure I have paid for jobs in cash in hand, as almost everyone has in the country. Look, I don't blame businesses for what they do. Everyone should pay their taxes. Of course they should do. We're a party for working people. We don't like people who don't pay their taxes, because that's just making it harder for everybody else. We believe in fairness and everyone playing their full part in society. I'm very conscious that the tax system has been set up in a way that makes life extremely difficult for small businesses to grow and to expand. What we've set out today are a number of changes that will completely change the incentives. For example, increasing the VAT threshold from £90,000 to £150,000. That means that if you're a business, you're doing all right, maybe you want to take on an employee, you can do so without suddenly having to worry that you're going to have to jack up your prices, make yourself uncompetitive, or fill in a whole load of admin that you've got to do to suddenly report to the taxman on your VAT. If you do sensible things like that, then you'll back the legitimate businesses, and I bet you'll also weed out some of the bad practices that you're referring to as well. I've got David Lynch now from the Press Association.
Thanks, Mr. Jenrick. Yeah, David Lynch from PA. Two things from me. Firstly, this press conference, when taken with several of others over the last couple of weeks, seems to represent a broadening of Reform's policy platform. But there's several areas we've yet to hear from you in great detail. I'm thinking defence, foreign affairs, health, etc. When might we hear more from you on those issues, and when do you plan to appoint spokespeople to head up those areas of speciality? And secondly, just want to come back to something from the Clacton by-election. Reform offered to pay for the costs of that by-election. That was something the government said that couldn't be done. You've just been speaking about HMRC, being on the phone to them. Have you thought about making a voluntary tax payment sort of to pay the costs of that by-election? And if not, why not? Thank you.
Well, we offered to pay for the cost of the Clacton by-election to tendering council, and they weren't able to do so. So the offer was made, but for the rules, apparently, they were not able to do so. With respect to broadening out, look, you've heard in the last fortnight from Richard Tice on housing and how we can help young British people get on the housing ladder with good quality, affordable homes. You heard from me and Richard on welfare reform, how we can bring down our absolutely ballooning welfare bill. You've heard from Zia Yusuf about how we solve the prison crisis and boot out the foreign criminals back to places where they came from, or to El Salvador, so that we can free up spaces to get our own criminals into those prison places. And you heard from me today about small business. So the offer from Reform is very broad. Nigel's been clear that that's going to continue, and there will be new additions in the months ahead to our top team. But thank you very much. I've got now Maurizio from City AM.
Hi, thank you. HMRC is one of the biggest government employers, and it's arguably one of the more important government departments. There's a lot of stick in the policy, but not much carrot for employees of the government. Could putting restrictions on the taxman seriously backfire over the management and oversight of public finances? And if I may, small businesses are getting a lot of the focus, but there's obviously been some recent disputes with Serco and Vodafone. Should larger businesses be warned that they will be targeted by Reform? Thanks.
Well, we don't believe in crony capitalism. And if you exploit the taxpayer, like employing illegal workers, for example, then yeah, you're going to find life very, very tough under a Reform government. In fact, your executives are going to be prosecuted and they could go to jail. That's absolutely right. We believe in backing good British businesses, the ones who are employing British workers, who are paying their taxes, who are playing by the rules. If you don't do that, then yeah, life is going to be tough. That's quite right. That's what British people want to see happen. With respect to HMRC, we're just asking them to do their jobs. We're just asking them to do their jobs. Answer the phone. Respond to emails. Be courteous. Treat taxpayers with dignity and respect. It's not too much to ask for. And if the fat cats who run HMRC and earn hundreds of thousands of pounds every year can't do that, then they'll be out of a job under a reform government. And quite right so. I've got Noah Keat from Politico.
Thank you very much. I wondered if Reform had any plans to reduce the delays at HMRC by increasing the headcount of staff, given that numbers fell under your former party during the years of austerity. And on another topic, almost a year ago, the Conservatives announced that they would abolish stamp duty entirely. I wondered if Reform had any proposals on that specific policy. Thank you.
Well, with respect to HMRC, look, they could employ more people if they can do so within their existing budget, but look, I bet there's a lot of technology out there that they could be using. Why not use AI? I mean, you can't even get them to respond to emails at the moment because they say they don't have a secure email server. That's how pitiful it is. So, come on. This is not just about more bodies, more bums on seats. It's about being smart, having good management, and actually looking out for taxpayers once and for all. And we've seen it elsewhere. I mean, I remember when I was in government and we had the world's worst passport agency. We brought in some decent managers. We've now got a pretty efficient passport agency. And it was the simplest things that they did. Bring people back to the office. Give them some targets. Have some decent managers who know what's going on in their teams. It's not rocket science. It's the kind of things that small business owners who are watching this today know and do every single day and are absolutely astonished is not happening in the public sector. So I'm certain that we can fix that and restore sanity. I've got, lastly, David Shepherd from the Financial Times. David.
David Shepherd from the Financial Times, as you just said. The question I have is on the VAT. While I'm sure many small businesses would welcome the increase towards 150,000, is that not just delaying the cliff edge? I mean, the most frequent complaint I hear about VAT is that in this instance, if you're making 149,000 in revenue a year, you pay zero. Make 151,000 and you're paying 20% on the lot of it. Is there perhaps scope for a more ambitious reform as opposed to just raising the level, but how it's paid in general?
Right. So what do you want to do? Abolish VAT altogether?
Not abolish. Yeah, I'm not saying we should, but just...
Well, all in good time, but I think it's a good first... Look, it's a good first step, and no one else, frankly, has done this. The VAT thresholds haven't even kept up with inflation over the course of the last 20 years. It's a good first step to increase from 90,000 to 150,000. That helps 300,000 businesses, frees them from all the red tape that would come with that. I appreciate that, there will be bunching at 150,000 as there is at 90,000, but you're still going a long way to help a lot of businesses. And by the time they've reached 150k, they're more established businesses, more able to take on all of the administrative burden. And you can see that that's just one part of a very broad plan, which taken together provides a huge amount of support to businesses that are currently being ground into the dirt by this Labour government, which does not care at all about small business. That's going to change under reform. Small business is going to be at the absolute heart of our mission. We're a party of working people. We're a party of small business people. You know that when you meet our members, our councillors, our parliamentary candidates. It's going to be at the forefront of everything that I do if I'm lucky enough to serve as Chancellor. Thank you all very much indeed for today. Sure, go for it. Well, that would be a change. A clock can't be wrong every hour of the day. Not difficult at all.
When you're used to this threatening bosses of some companies with imprisonment, and even in a sort of startup-friendly constituency like this one, you barely have 1,000 votes. And just the other question,
Well, let me answer the question you've offered. Come a week on Thursday to Reform's conference, where we are holding a business day in which hundreds and hundreds of businesses, large and small, are coming to hear what Reform has got to offer. I think it will be the most impressive business day of any of the political parties this conference season. But to your more substantive point, if you're an executive of a business and you employ illegal workers or you facilitate illegal immigrants coming across the channel in flagrant breach of our laws that will cost British taxpayers billions of pounds, may even lead to crime against our people, the epidemic of rape and sexual crime that is currently happening at the hands of illegal migrants. Are you saying those people shouldn't be arrested and go to prison? Well, I think they should be. That is exactly the type of crony capitalism, of bosses who have no regard for the laws of this country that a Reform government would weed out. So Zia is absolutely right about that. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.